Welcome to the Rainbow Gateway Oracle. This is a reading for Virgo, all placements, sun, moon, rising, sixth house, etc., etc. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for you. This reading is going to help us in the shadows today. We have In My Time of Dying, and the depths of despair are coming through. So there will be messages that might not resonate for you, but they'll be for someone else. And definitely always follow your own intuition when following tarot readings. This is for Virgo energy and also Chiron energy in your chart, and this is also going to help you clear away some of the things that are really taking you into the depths of the darkness in yourself right now. And so this is a really important reading for you in terms of your healing and your journey and everything like that. If this is resonating for you, it's definitely something that you want to take seriously and honor and love and cherish yourself throughout this process, because you deserve love. And you may have never experienced love in your life because you weren't raised with it, but this is your time to actually have a glimpse and then a giant opening of the heart chakra, but it's going to come incrementally at first so that you don't get too afraid. But there could be some emotional triggers here, but the triggers are there to help you heal. So it's finding healthy creative expression for the emotion without self-judgment, and that's tricky. There are things like yoga and other processes like qigong and music and frequency and sound and other modalities which calm and stimulate your nervous system. Essentially, you want to stimulate your nervous system into a state of, parasympathetic that's the thing that you're looking for, is the calming of the body in order to alleviate stress. But a lot of times the stress is held on to, and it's a mental process. The emotional energy gets stuck, and then the mind chatters, and the chatter is filled with all sorts of fearful belief structures and patterns and things like that, and it's all associated with particular feelings. And so it's having to understand why the underlying feeling is there and what the need is, because the feeling is trying to alert you that there's a need, or like there's a need to shift a pattern of thought, there's a need to take a breath, there's a need to get better sleep, there's a bodily need, an emotional need, a functional need that needs to be fulfilled. Sometimes there's several needs that need to be fulfilled, and that's the part of this journey here that's misunderstood, is needs, wants, self-value, and the value of other human beings as well. Self-betrayal comes when we ignore our intuitive senses and we follow the pathway of fear instead of the pathway of our soul, essentially, because the intuitive senses, it's it's the original programming. It's what we're programmed when we come in with this trajectory. And then it's waylaid because we're conditioned otherwise. We're conditioned to ignore that part of ourselves and override it and do something differently. So it's like we've been planted bad seeds which contribute to our making fear-based decisions rather than decisions based on faith, trust, love, generosity, abundance, things like that. We find that we grasp onto the fearful mindset. So the thoughts that are going on in our head are fearful, they're negative, but they're not you. It's like you're not generating those thoughts. They're just there. You have control over which thoughts you're paying attention to in your mind. And this is what meditation is all about. And it's not something that happens overnight. But you have to understand that you have to be mindful. You have to pay attention to what you're thinking about, because thoughts create disturbances. They create distortion, and they create bad energy, bad vibes. As soon as you start feeling a bad vibe, taking a deep breath is really important, because then you can start to pay attention to what kind of thoughts am I thinking right now, and do I have to keep these thoughts? You don't have to keep the thoughts in your head that say disparaging things about yourself. You don't have to keep the thoughts in your head that say shitty things about other people. Your mind doesn't have to be polluted. So it's like, this is the thing with meditation. You have to start paying attention to thought patterns, And if you look at thought patterns as fish in a river, and essentially you're observing the fish in the river, and some fish are ones you want and others are not. Or sometimes when you're fishing in the river, you find pieces of garbage. If you have the nets out, you end up collecting debris. This is the thing. So as you're meditating, you have to recognize that your awareness, your self-awareness, your higher self, your actual authentic being, when given prompting, will filter out garbage and debris in the mental sphere. So thought patterns that are shameful, guilty, blaming, hating, hurtful, all of these kinds of stories and things that are about death and fear and defensiveness and attack and hurting other people and stuff like this, all of this kind of energy that's there, it's there as a protective mechanism, but it's actually loaded. It's like walking around with a loaded gun in a lot of people's cases, given the emotional pollution and toxicity that they are consistently drowning in on a collective level when it comes to the health of the emotional body within our culture and within our world. This reading is going to be underway very shortly. The reminder here is that you have the power. You have the power to pay attention to what you're thinking about. You don't have to keep those bad stories about yourself. And you have to realize that the thoughts aren't you. Those thoughts are just floating past you, like fish in the stream or debris. And you have to decide which thoughts you want to keep and which thoughts you don't want to keep. And eventually you start to see that all the thoughts in the stream are actually meaningless. And it's not interesting to the self-awareness to even look at any of those thoughts in the stream, because ultimately they start to trigger negative feelings and intensity in the body. So when you adhere to thoughts that feel bad, you can recognize that when you take a deep breath and stuff like that, you can let that thought story go, and you can release that negative energy that's underlying, because the feeling is what you want to focus on. Most people focus on the mind, they focus on the thoughts. So when you get an emotional trigger, it rises up, and then you get a whole storm of thoughts in your mind, and that's the thing you need to pay attention to. But what you need to recenter yourself, because you need to focus on the feeling. You need to breathe into the feeling that's intense rather than focus on the thoughts. You have to let the thoughts swirl around in your head like a hive of angry fucking bees. And that's the thing about your mind. You have to understand that your mind is like a bunch of fucking hornets and shit swarming around all fucking pissed off because someone disturbed the nest. So if this is the state of your mind right now with thoughts all the time, you have to learn to just be still, because there's nothing you can do about those hornets. You have to watch the hornets and just let them be there and breathe deeply. Breathe deeply when the hornets are like on the loose, and just watch them as self-awareness. Breathe into it and observe. Separating yourself from the thoughts is helpful, but it's also recognizing that everything is a part of you, and everything is a progression of you and an evolution of you. And that's what you need to remember. You are the power and the master and the commander of your mind. You're the awareness. You're the focus. You choose what thoughts you want to focus on. If you're focusing on criticism, judgment, bad feelings, you're going to continue to get more bad feelings. You have to understand, where is that bad feeling coming from? It's usually a need or a disparaging belief against yourself that's limiting you. Pay attention to your self-limiting beliefs, because when you tell yourself you can't do things, it's usually because there's an underlying fear about doing that. Even though it feels good to do that, you don't let yourself, because there's a fear, there's another fear underneath there. That's the stuff that needs to be paid attention to. And once you can kind of chip away and clear away those underlying fears, like they don't bother you anymore, you learn how to breathe into the intensity of fear and withstand it without feeling the need to run from it. You take your power back, because fear is just a real intense feeling accompanied with a whole bunch of thoughts and stories in your head, beliefs and things like that. And so you don't have to keep the bad stories, but you still have to feel that dark feeling. You have to feel that upset feeling. You have to feel that intensity. You have to allow yourself to move through that energy rather than numb it out with drugs and alcohol or repress it or avoid it. But that can be the difficult thing to do, is to resolve those issues of repression, avoidance, or addiction. And it's not anything for shame, because you just want to try to feel better, and those are the best ways you were taught how to deal with those types of emotions and difficult intensities that, you know, sort of take you down every day, and it makes it hard for you to like get your head off the pillow, or, you know, even get out of bed that day. Here we go. We have the Santa Muertes, and we're going to get these cards out. Virgos and Virgo placements, and whoever else has found their way in here. We have the Empress, the Moon, and the Knight of Pentacles. Let's see here. There's a part of you that's still hidden. But it's coming out. There's a part of you that's coming out that was hidden before. Like you're starting to understand, you're starting to see things deeper inside of yourself that you weren't seeing before. Yeah, we have the Three of Swords here. There was someone was stabbed in the back here. But I feel like you didn't see it coming. You didn't see it coming at all. You know, this could have had something to do with you know, your work or your position in your family. Like, this is coming through like maybe you're like a CEO. But you're someone who allows opportunities to come to you rather than going out and getting them. And, you know, you're definitely well known in your industry or at your place of work or your place of business, or, you know, within your family, community, something like that. There is definitely a backstabbing here. The